This is a frequently asked questions webinar that has been organised by the England Athletics Club support team. We've run one this morning and we're doing one now. First of all, just a quick welcome to you all and thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you're all safe and healthy. My name's Emma Hearst. I'm a Senior Club Support Manager for England Athletics. I'm hosting the webinar this evening. The questions are going to be answered by Dan Isherwood, who's the Head of Operations for England Athletics. All of the questions have been previously submitted, so we're going to work our way through the set questions. As I've said before, comments can be made using this chat section down the right hand side of the screen as if you're looking at it. You should be able, most of you have found that now. We may have time at the end to answer any further questions, or what we'll do is we'll call you back individually on specific questions after the webinar. And we've done that this morning with a few people. It's worked quite well. The webinar is set to listen only mode, so all your mics are muted. So this helps prevent any background noise and helps just get through the questions that we've got. You don't need your cameras on, so it doesn't matter if you've got your pajamas on already. Nobody will know. And finally, sit back and enjoy, and hopefully we'll provide some answers to some of the questions that you've got during this period. So if I hand you over to Dan Isherwood now. Are you there, Dan?
I am, yes. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this second of our frequently asked questions webinars today. I'm pleased to be able to answer the questions and provide you with all the information that we have. As Emma said, these have been provided prior to the session, so if there are any questions as we go through, please let us know, and we'll endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible and answer those questions for you if they're not answered throughout the process. So before I start, I'd like to say a couple of things. Firstly, from all of us at England Athletics, we send our best wishes to everyone in the England Athletics family during this difficult period, and we thank all key workers and frontline NHS staff, many of whom are athletes, runners, coaches, officials in their spare time. And secondly, I'd like to thank our clubs for all of the work you currently are doing and you continue to do to ensure that your members stay engaged in the sport during this time of limited activity as we know it. There's some fantastic examples of work that are going on that I'll touch on later in the questions. So if we kick off with the first question. There've been a number of questions relating to virtual running and running in isolation. You should be able to see an example on the screen now. So firstly, both organisers of such activities plus the individual runners themselves need to adhere to the guidance already issued on the England Athletics website relating to the suspension of all formal athletics and running training competition activity. Physical activity. This is available on the England Athletics website and has been now for a couple of weeks. So we try and update that on a regular basis. So keep your eye out there on the England Athletics website. It'll be on the homepage there. Ultimately, we want our club athletes and runners to continue to enjoy their own training whilst, of course, operating within these guidelines. We're aware a number of coaches and leaders are offering guidance and coaching programs virtually whilst operating within the guidelines issued, and that's absolutely fine as we currently stand. We have published some guidance on this with our partners UK Athletics and the other home countries, and that's also available online. And the specific context of that guidance is mainly around insurance. We're also aware that a number of bodies are offering virtual competitions and challenges for athletes and runners of all abilities at this time as well. Now, I think quite rightly, most of these challenges are being spaced over a period of time, i.e. numbers of days to avoid large groups of people gathering in one location. And it can in many cases be completed in isolation during the course of that single form of exercise that everyone is allowed to have during a day. So I think that's the key part. So taking care at the time to try and avoid lots of people running on the same route at the same time in the same location. We have to make sure that we do that. From an England Athletics perspective, we have just managed to secure some specific insurance for virtual competition and license for events, and that's again thanks to the coordinated work with UK Athletics and the other home countries in light of this growing interest in virtual events. There will inevitably be conditions aligned to such licensing, and this will need to be worked through in the coming days. It's likely that the virtual competition license in England would be available through Run Britain, and we're working through that detail now. England Athletics itself are in the process of finalising, again through partnership working with the home countries, a series of virtual competitions for runners, and the details around these will be released over the course of the next couple of weeks. Virtual competition with coordinated results and leaderboards using technology could become, an established method of supporting athletes and runners now, but also even after the coronavirus restrictions are lifted. I think the interest in this has demonstrated that it's actually a format that we should probably take seriously for the future as well. Hence, why we're pursuing insurance, etc. at this moment in time. But we appreciate that this is being introduced very quickly, and as a result of unprecedented circumstances, there are a lot of questions relating to this, and we're indeed working through those ourselves. In summary, we'd encourage runners to abide by the social distancing and government guidance that's been issued so far. Ultimately, you can only do so much as a club to influence or inform your members about their running habits, outside of making them aware of their obligations, that we've outlined on our website and on other platforms as well. And of course, if government guidance does change that makes any sort of material impact on this guidance, then that's sort of out of our control, but we'll make our decisions based on that, and we'll keep everyone updated as quickly as we possibly can. It's absolutely essential that within the sport we do follow these guidelines. And however, in response to queries, we can confirm that insurance is still valid during this period for clubs, coaches, leaders, and registered athletes engaging in virtual coaching, online guidance, e-learning, and other digital and remote activities that aren't required sort of in-person attendance. That's providing that sufficient risk management plans have been put in place to mitigate the risks, and that everyone adheres to that official guidance. Also important to note there that clubs will need to be affiliated, coaches will need to be licensed to make sure that insurance is still valid. And we ask coaches, leaders, and athletes to ensure they're always following the guidelines. So the key one for us, in addition to leaving the home for travelling and food and health reasons or essential work, no public gatherings. The key one's that one form of exercise a day outside, with on your own or with a member of your family, and staying that 2 meters or 6 feet away from other people, ensuring you're maintaining that distance when overtaking and passing others whilst you're out running. Really important. I'll come on to that a bit more detail in a minute. Following on from that, in relation to virtual running, there is a second question that's more specifically around social distancing and some of the negative publicity that's been around runners not adhering to that social distancing measures. For example, those sort of passing too closely and exercising outdoors more than once a day. So really, the advice that we would give on this is to remind members of their obligations to themselves, their club, their families, and wider society, and refer them to the existing guidance that is available. And it's our view that guidance is very clear, and we will continue to offer and reiterate guidance on a regular basis. But ultimately, we cannot control, as England Athletics, we cannot control the habits of those 7 million people who are running monthly, 6 million people who are running on a weekly basis in this country. People really do need to take responsibility for their own actions. So we're currently allowed to run once a day. We should be doing that alone or with people who you live with. We need to stay 2 meters away from other people. And on a practical level, depending on where you are running, if you're taking responsibility for your own actions, it should not be difficult to stay 2 meters apart from somebody whilst running. For example, as a runner, you can see what's going on around you. Think of others at all times. That may include slowing down and stopping to wait for others to pass if necessary. Crossing the road safely, to move away from other people if needed. Don't expect others to move out of the way for you. You move for them. And I think that's critically important, just to get the message across. And if runners are not acting responsibly, we may very quickly get into a position where the guidance does change and where exercise away from the home also becomes restricted. And we want to avoid that at all costs, really, because of some of the brilliant, innovative work that's happened already within clubs to people still to maintain that running habit and running once a day. So that's sort of completes the responses on those two areas. The next question relates to the club and athlete registration and club fees. So firstly, we'd like to say a big thank you to those clubs who have already registered with England Athletics during the first week of our affiliation year. A significant amount of clubs have done this, and as they normally would, and that support is massively appreciated during this uncertain time. And we know that clubs are struggling to operate as they normally would due to the implications of coronavirus. The fee doesn't just support competitions for athletes. Obviously, it's a key part, but I think we need to work a little bit harder on getting the message across to our members that fee does help support a wide range of activities, such as coach development, official development, participation programs, club support, and general infrastructure such as the website, some of the digital platforms, and our general membership services and communications function, all of which provide indirect, if not direct, benefits to athletes and others. I think it's important to recap in the response to the feedback of over 200 clubs in the first 2 weeks of this sort of crisis situation leading up to the 1st of April. And in recognition of the unique circumstances that we're faced at the moment, we did make some amendments to the timescales and the athlete registration fee. So just to confirm, the fee for the year is £15. We've fixed that at £15 and not increased it as we had previously planned to for 2021. We have opened the registration gateway for affiliation and for clubs to register athletes if they want to at this stage. However, it's absolutely not a necessity at this point in time, because we've extended the athlete registration deadline from the 30th of June through to the 31st of August. So that's with the hope that will provide clubs with a bit more flexibility to help manage cash flow, so that clubs can defer their own membership payments until there's a little bit more clarity on the situation and until sort of activity recommences. So absolutely that flexibility exists. In the event that competition does start to take place during the summer, prior to August the 31st, all athletes who were registered last year will still be eligible for competition up until the 31st of August. And all of our systems, we've updated that, so that will be reflected. And as per normal, any new athletes entering competitions will need to be registered prior to the date of the event. The club affiliation fee of £150 remains unchanged, and where at all possible, we would like clubs to still pay that by the end of this month. Now, mainly from an insurance perspective, to make sure even during these times, clubs and their activity is fully insured. That support would be hugely appreciated. I guess despite there being an evident period of practical inactivity during this suspension, we want to assure our members that we are proactively working to close down planned activities and, where possible, to reschedule them for later in the year. And that takes work. And there are existing activities scheduled to take place in the summer onwards, and we hope will continue to take place as planned. And obviously they do require to income, and the athlete registration fees helps to support that activity. And we want to try and keep that continuity in that respect. We are already delivering a number of additional support activities to athletes and runners and volunteers, and I'll come on to a few of those things at the end. But we're currently utilising a lot of our digital platforms that we've developed, and it's through the athlete registration fees and the income that we generate from club affiliation that we've managed to invest in that, to put us into a position now so that we can respond quickly to change how we deliver certain things to help us during this time. So just to confirm, really, that athlete registration and affiliation fee does make up a significant part of our total income, and therefore we need those funds to ensure the organisation can function. But we completely understand that clubs are in a similar position in relation to their membership fees. So we'll be assessing the situation and the ongoing restrictions. Further consultation with the sport will take place in the later part of the summer months, and as we look ahead to next year, to see how these current circumstances help to inform what future decisions we make around future changes to fees and the long-term sort of support for the sport at all levels. We're already looking at other ways in which England Athletics can generate additional income to replace the inevitable losses that we will incur this year, which we'll already incur through the reduction in the fees. But we're also reviewing our own cost base to make sure that this is appropriate as it should be, and we're reviewing our activities to make sure we're only delivering what is essential to support the sport during these the first couple of months of the year. In short, the individual athlete fee supports a lot of activity, indirectly impacts on the ability for the sport to provide opportunities for athletes. Each time that athlete registers with us, he or she is not just donating towards their own direct benefit, but is making a wider contribution to the general health of the sport, from which they and their friends and their teammates can ultimately benefit too. And as we know, without coaches and officials and clubs and volunteers that fee also helps to support, there'd be no activities for athletes to enjoy. Okay, whilst I'm answering this question, a lot of clubs have also asked what do we do with that extra £1 per athlete if you've already collected the £16 for the 2021 year, before obviously we'd made the decision to fix that at 15. Now here, your options will depend on how you're in the habit of collecting that England Athletics registration fee. So if you collect it as a separate item alongside subs, then technically you hold that money in trust until you pay it on to England Athletics or return it to the athlete. If, however, you just levy a sub and then as a club pay England Athletics to register all or a particular number of your members, technically the excess £1 in each case is the club's money to do with what it pleases. But I think there's lots of ideas about how that could be used. I think in both cases, really, by asking the members and consulting with the members to approve whatever purpose the club believes is best, is probably the best way forward. Some ideas may be to return it to the athletes concerned, or keep it and build a hardship fund for those members who require support during this current period. keep it and use it towards purchasing new vests for a specific team in the club ready for competition in the late summer or winter season. Keeping it and using it towards post-coronavirus intra-club competition or festivals. Keeping it and using it to subsidise access for club volunteers to undertake coaching, leadership qualifications in the future. Keep it and use it to subsidise or purchase new equipment to enhance coaching sessions at the club. All of those ideas would be appropriate at this time. We also know that there's a number of clubs that are also working hard to raise money to donate to local charities, and in many cases local NHS trusts, which is a phenomenal thought, and excellent that we're clubs are thinking about that at this stage too. So that concludes that question. We move on to the next question, which relates to our email distribution lists and making sure that people within the clubs, athletes and club secretaries, etc., are receiving the right communication. So here we heavily rely on clubs and athletes to provide their correct contact details at point of registration. So also informing us of any changes throughout the year or during the renewal process each year, and ensuring their communication preferences are updated within the My Athletics portal, on a regular basis. As long as we know that and the communication preferences are selected within the My Athletics portal, then communication should be making their way to you as individuals. As an individual, you may have also made the decision to unsubscribe from communications in the past. So if you think you are not receiving emails, it's likely that we do not have up-to-date contact information, or communication preferences are not set correctly. So to do this, you can visit myathletics.englandathletics.org, and the portal there is you can update your communication preferences by ticking the relevant boxes to opt in. If you're a club secretary, and please ensure that the contact details for all roles at the club are up to date, so that we can make sure we're sending the right messages to the right person within the club. So for instance, if there's a welfare specific message that we want to push out to welfare officers, we need to make sure we've got the correct contact details for the welfare officers. If there is business critical communications for clubs, we will send that information irrespective of whether or not someone is opted into receiving communications to the secretary, so that information can get through to people. So that's important. It's important that people who want to receive information about our programs and activity are opted into that specific preference within the communication centre. We're currently sending a weekly email update about our at-home campaign, and there's more on that to follow in some of the questions. So hopefully that covers that question. So the next question relates specifically to whether or not we can encourage plans for an autumn track and field season. So on this one, we're working actively with UKA, who are responsible for the coordination of the fixture calendar process, to look at what a revised competition programme will look like once we're able to resume some sort of normal activity period. We expect the track and field season will be extended to the end of September at least. That's to be confirmed. The immediate priority will be the rescheduling of any sort of British championships, national and area level championships. But it's going to be important counties and clubs are also encouraged to be creative when it comes to putting on competition at a local level. Just to note, we aren't in control of leagues. They're run by their own management and we cannot dictate to them. But we shall, however, work with them to help them salvage something from the summer to the extent that we are able as an organisation. People will be aware that a number of national championships, including the England Schools Track and Field Champs, the first two matches of the newly formed National Athletics League and the YDL matches have been cancelled. But we believe that despite cancellations and despite the curtailment of the season, we believe it's an opportunity to potentially think and act differently in terms of providing track and field competition for our participants, and particularly for our youngest athletes. We think this is obviously going to be a unique year, and in this situation, it's an opportunity to think creatively about how we provide competition, particularly at a local level. And I know there are plans to be more flexible when it comes to granting licenses for competition, but also in areas such as the level of officials that may be required to officiate at certain competitions, obviously subject to health and safety requirements, etc. But we need to work together to make sure that there's some competition, just so important, there's some competition for athletes when the suspension period has ended. That's one of our main aims now. The priority for our youngest athletes must be to ensure that there's some sort of local intra or inter-club team-based run, jump, throw competition once this suspension is lifted. We need to be looking at things like limiting travel times for under 11s and under 13s, 15s. We know that's really important, and keeping competitions short, fun, engaging, team-based, and ensuring that each child potentially does a run, jump, and a throw, plus perhaps a team medley relay, adhering to the long-term athlete development model. Lots of different innovative solutions that potentially can be thought about here, and we're working with UK Athletics to introduce a new under 11s track and field competition aligned to our phonetics program. If you want to know more about the phonetics program, it's a newly launched program focused on delivering run, jump, throw activities to those that are under 11. Phonetics, funetics.co.uk is the website, and a lot more information there. Okay, so that hopefully covers off how we're looking at being innovative around competition for the back end of summer, autumn period. Okay, so the next question relates to funding. So funding specifically, the question was asked around facilities. So we know that funding for such facilities is largely down to the available resources and focuses of the local authority, track owners or leisure contractors responsible for that facility. Now, England Athletics doesn't have a capital grants fund, and neither does UKA. As a sport, we're significantly smaller organisations compared to bodies like the LTA in tennis and cricket and football and the RFU in rugby, who do offer such grant aid schemes and indeed interest-free loans too. But if we wanted to develop such a scheme, we would have to find a way of generating a huge amount more income, and we don't want to be in a position where we are constantly, increasing and hiking fees, etc., which is not palatable really. Now we do work to advise Sport England, and they have recently announced a 195 million support package to the sport, including to help voluntary run bodies. So clubs, just like our affiliated clubs, can access funding here in relief for issues around coronavirus, from £300 to £10,000. That's really important for clubs to look at, and there's an article on our website which helps to provide more information on that, and also puts you in touch with the local club support manager that will be able to help as well. There is a facilities group for clubs that own their own facilities or are seeing financial implications for clubs, managed by our facilities manager. So that's something to also think about. We are looking to reprofile some of our funding from specific programs that we can hopefully utilise towards some sort of relief type funding, and also we're going to be issuing a fundraising guide as well to help clubs in the coming weeks. Now, a number of local authorities are investing in track refurbishments and on items like new throws cages at present, but it varies according to the area that you're based in. What we have done, though, to try and help is to put back the requirements for tracks to meet in terms of track mark standards by 12 months. So that won't be in place, need to be in place until March the 31st, 2022. And that might take some pressure off facilities. And I know, again, that our facilities manager, Ed Hunt, is looking at similar sort of relaxations in that process. Finally, we're aware that some clubs, in partnership with the local authority, they've been quite sort of forward thinking and have created a sinking fund for such projects, which they add to each year. And as a result of income from road races and other such funds, they've gone that a step further and planned far out for such eventualities. And that obviously is a sensible approach, with grant funding being limited and can't sort of rely on that as a method of investment. So setting up a specific fundraising committee for the club, or indeed designated one individual member of the committee to look at establishing a strategy in the area of work, that's worked for many clubs in our experience. And again, the local club support manager will be able to help with that. The next question, now this is an interesting one relating specifically to AGMs, and obviously people can't meet currently. We're in a very sort of difficult position in that sense, but I think the answer to this question is that the position may be different depending on whether the club is unincorporated members association or a company limited by guarantee. I think certainly with the former, and probably also the latter, as long as there's no special business to be conducted, for example, alterations in constitution or rules or articles, then clubs should take a pragmatic approach and circulate to all members to request that in the current exceptional circumstances, that any difficulty of holding a physical meeting, that everyone accepts that the meeting should be held electronically, with the provision of a proxy potentially for those that don't have access to the technology. Notice periods, documentation needs to be circulated as we'd expect, so that the normal sort of quorum issue should all be observed. And in the case of any sort of remaining doubt, there can be a ratifying resolution at the next year's meeting. Lastly, we stress that these are just ideas, and if you want any sort of legal advice on it, then please take advantage of the Muckle legal helpline that is obviously available to all affiliated clubs. The number for that is 0845 050 8458, or you can email englandathletics@mucklellp.com. Excuse me. So we'd expect that there should be normally be nothing preventing you from holding your AGM by utilising that remote platforms such as Skype or Microsoft Teams or Zoom or GoToMeeting, or there's a number of different platforms out there. And in fact, there's an article on our website that helps to identify some of those platforms and gives a series of examples of how to use those systems and what is the best system to use for different types of meetings. So that's something to point you in the direction of as well. So on to the next question. This is in relation to whether or not there needs to be a blanket approach in terms of restrictions, and whether or not there could be any flexibility in that. So firstly, as we said previously, we need to consider the government guidance when assessing if the suspension period that's currently in place until the end of May, if that's going to change at all. So the overall government guidelines, obviously, when will that end? Is it going to be partially lifted or maintained? all of our thoughts need to be based upon that. You know, it's currently difficult to make an either or decision, and the suspension, quite rightly, really applies to all competition providers. It's not possible for any face-to-face competition to run as we would know it. We have to be cautious when looking into the unknown, but if lockdown is lifted unexpectedly, there is nothing to stop us changing the date at which, you know, all competitions may start again. The UKA-led competition strategy group, led by Donna Fraser, will be looking at this carefully in an extension to the end of September in terms of the season. As I've said previously, we'll be looking at that. We're planning for that, as I've also said earlier. Our focus will be delivering British home country and area championships as a priority, and then in counties and clubs working together locally to facilitate opportunities. But we believe there'll be a lot of flexibility for local competitions to take place, which perhaps usually there isn't under normal circumstances. We're also looking at the options around Sport England relief investment as well from another source, which may come in useful for competitions and clubs in the future too. As I've said previously, we just need to get some form of competition organised to ensure that all of our athletes have a meaningful and relevant competition rather than none. Flexibility and compromise will be required at all levels once this suspension is lifted. For that, we're definitely sure. So hopefully that is clear in terms of really a one-size-fits-all approach has to be taken. So finally, the final question relates to what we're currently doing to support clubs and club members to stay connected with each other. So first of all, really, we need to point you in the direction of the England Athletics website, where you'll see everything that's on offer to engage with athletics and running at home, which is the overarching campaign that we've developed to ensure that we are offering as much as we possibly can for people across the England Athletics family to connect with athletics, you know, in a different way during this period. Everything now on the England Athletics Super homepage will be pointing you in the direction of things you can do at home. So tomorrow, a series of challenges delivered by Jenny Meadows and others will be launched. So these are for athletes and people at home to get involved in and have a bit of fun with whilst at home. There are many more webinars like this for clubs to engage with on all aspects of club support for over the coming weeks. Specialist club resources are downloadable from our website and in a new club resources area, so that resources delivered to you in a user-friendly way. So it's not just a document. We've brought those resources to life, and hopefully they will come in handy for all aspects of club development, club governance as well. We'll be launching a virtual club night for clubs to engage with across the country in the coming weeks. So keep your eye out again from the updates in the weekly England Athletics at Home bulletin that we're providing to everybody. From a coaching perspective, all England Athletics 365 resources will be made available for free, so there'll be no charge for those at this moment in time. That allows parents and coaches and athletes to engage with those resources at home. Specialist coaching webinars that have proven really popular in the last couple of days and weeks will be delivered on a daily basis there. So you'll be able to listen to some real experts talking about event group specific coaching. So keep an eye out for those webinars too. The event group specific development resources are also available on our Athletics Hub platform. So again, lots of resources. You can select what preferences you want on that platform, and you will be served with the latest information on those specific areas in that platform. Our membership services team are still available on the phone or via email 5 days a week to ensure all your answers, all your queries are answered as quickly as possible. Our resources and videos from our phonetics program are going to be available for parents to deliver at home with their children, helping to keep that next generation of young athletes engaged. There's a series of podcasts which are available to download. So these are regular podcasts that we do, talking to people from across the sport to get their perspective, especially during this time, to listen to how they're sort of coping and what they're doing. There is an officials at home section that's launched in the last couple of days, promoting again a series of webinars and of sort of quiz-based type activity for officials. A number of useful articles, as I mentioned, a digital article earlier around all the digital tools and systems that are available has been created. There's also a really useful article that's been created around mental health at this time and what support people can be given at this time, where it's so important that we try and keep our physical and emotional health and well-being as good as it possibly can. We're working really hard to ensure that once the restrictions are lifted, that athletes have access to competition, and we're working behind the scenes to facilitate this as much as we possibly can. And finally, we're showcasing some brilliantly innovative ways in which our clubs are staying connected with their members during this time. There's some fantastic examples. You'll see these on our social channels. Some great examples of trying to keep engaged with the members during this time. So, clubs that are delivering their own sort of virtual club nights, their own route mapping webinars. There are, there's lots of different activity that are happening, and I mentioned earlier some brilliant thinking around fundraising in the local areas during this time, which is fantastic. Throughout all of these communications of the England the athletics and running at home campaign, we're inviting everyone to share via social media under the hashtag Better Together. We ask people to post how they are staying active at home and finding new ways to stay in touch with others across the England athletics and running family. We will aggregate everything that's and reshare all of that information, and we will do our very best to make sure that as we continue to go through this challenging time, that we're providing as much as we possibly can as an organisation to our members and the wider England athletics family. So really appreciate you hooking into this today and listening to our responses. Hopefully it's been useful. The session has been recorded so that we'll be able to publicise this, and people will be able to access this after the event as well. And hopefully you'll be able to access some of the other things that we've got on offer over the coming weeks. So thank you very much.